Joining me now is Strategic Analysis Australia Director Peter Jennings. Peter, this $12.5 billion figure, that comes from the inaugural cost of the espionage report. That sounds like a huge amount of money. Have you been able to get your head around what that actually means?
Chris, I suspect it's actually significantly underestimating the value of damage to the Australian economy. And a large part of it comes from intellectual property theft. So that is to say business ideas, designs, which are stolen and then manufactured in other countries and sold in ways which then undermine the success of the Australian good. I think that's a very large part of the 12 billion or so that Mike Burgess announced. I wouldn't be at all surprised if, in fact, the figure was significantly larger than that. So this is a very useful study, but if Australians are surprised by it, I think what we'll find is if we see future versions, the number is actually going to grow.
Burgess is always pretty brutally honest, and I was listening to his speech with interest, and he gave an example of something that happened several years ago, apparently involving an overseas delegation, he didn't name the country, at a secret horticultural facility. Have a listen to what he said about that.
During an official tour of the site, a member of the delegation broke away, entered a restricted lab and photographed a rare and valuable variety of fruit tree. An alert staff member discovered and deleted the images, but it emerged photos weren't the only thing taken that day. Several of the tree's branches were missing. The delegate had snapped them off and smuggled them out of Australia. Almost certainly, the stolen plant material allowed scientists in the other country to reverse engineer and replicate 2 decades of Australian research and development.
Peter, we can only imagine what country that might be, but this might not surprise you. It absolutely surprised me. I could not believe it, and I presume that person was taking that 20-year project of growing apples, I think it was, back to the country they came from so they could grow apples like that themselves and not have to import them. That's my guess.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, if you search for this type of information, you'll see that it's happening all the way around the world, particularly in places like the United States, the European Union. To anticipate your question, China is a very, very large part of that, but not alone. But I think it's just remarkable that, and Mike Burgess touches on this in his speech as well, how naive Australians are to imagine that it couldn't possibly happen here or it wouldn't happen to my business. And Mike actually quotes Australian officials saying, oh, well, no one would be interested in going after my information. But this is industrial level espionage and intellectual property theft. And of course, it's being directed against Australia because we're a high technology country with very significant alliance relations with the United States and other developed economies. And it will be happening all the time. So no, I'm not surprised. And I hope that people see Mike's speech as an important wake-up call that we've got to be taking our security more seriously to protect our economy and also to keep our country safer against the risk of military threat, which is something the government says is, more likely than we've seen since the end of the Second World War, but at the same time appears to be taking no steps to actually improve or strengthen our situation.
Yes, I think ASIO is doing a pretty good job. Can we talk about Palestine? There's obviously growing momentum around the world to recognise a Palestinian state. You've got Canada, the UK and France all announcing the plans to do so. Treasurer Jim Chalmers said yesterday that it's a matter of when, not if, that Australia follows. Can Peter Jennings actually explain to me what Palestinian state we would be recognising?
There is no viable Palestinian state that could be recognised right now, and that's because in Gaza it's controlled by Hamas, and the West Bank is controlled by the Palestinian Authority, which is barely better than Hamas, has been a sponsor and supporter of terrorism in the past, and is certainly not welcome in Gaza for that matter. Steve, it's outrageous that otherwise sensible Western democracies are proposing to effectively reward Hamas for their attack on October 7, 2023 against Israel. That's what this outcome would produce. And, I haven't in recent months been particularly complimentary of Anthony Albanese, but I have to say he's got it right when he is more cautious about saying that Australia should support recognising a Palestinian state. And he's right because he wants Hamas to be taken out of the picture. That has to happen. And I think we're a long way away, frankly, from there being a viable state in existence or worthy or capable of being recognised. And it really is to the intense discredit of Canada and the UK and France and other countries to want to be pushing this outcome when the only thing it will do is reward Hamas. And that means to say keep their dominance over the Palestinian people, further entrenched. That's a disastrous outcome. And I think our governments are doing this more for what they see as the performative value inside their own democracies, but they're paying no attention to what's actually going on in the Middle East. And a recognition of a state which is too early for Palestine, I think, is going to be deeply disastrous for the Middle East.
Well said, Peter Jennings. Thank you very much for joining us.